Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the theory of editing. This is not an editing tutorial, but it's more helping you understand how you should approach editing a project no matter what software you're editing on. You're going to see some clips in here today where I work on Final Cut Pro, and if you want to know more about Final Cut Pro, it is an Apple product. I do have a beginner tutorial that I will link to in the description, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what program you're editing on. These principles are going to apply, and I'm going to tell you step by step how I approach editing a video and what my thought process is and what my order of operations is as well, because that is very important. First, let's talk about what editing is. Editing is basically taking a lot of different raw elements and distilling them down into a message that's cohesive, tight, and either informs or moves the viewer. As an editor, your job is to take whatever's happening in the real world and make it seem more fun, more exciting, more compelling, more emotional. And how do you do that? You take away all like the dead space or the uninteresting parts of your raw video. So think of it this way. If you had a friend that just came back from Disney World and he was like so excited to tell you about his trip, he even made a little video about his day at Disney. What would you want to see as the viewer? Would you want to see him on the roller coaster and getting his picture taken with Mickey Mouse and eating one of those like big turkey legs? Or would you rather see the reality of the situation, which is like 2-hour-long lines, and lots of bathroom breaks? Nobody wants to sit through that. So your job as an editor is to take out all the boring parts and make whatever your video is about seem more interesting than what happens in real life. Next, understand the assignment. What is the purpose of this video? Who is going to be the viewer? Are there any length constraints you need to think about? What are all the different elements you could possibly pull into this video? And what emotion are you trying to evoke? Is this going to be a sad video that you want to try to like move people to action, to either volunteer or to donate? Are you trying to sell a product and you want to make that product look as cool as possible? All of that criteria is going to inform every decision you make in the editing process. Now let's talk about the order of operations. You actually want to start with your audio. If you're working with a voiceover, lucky you, because you know exactly how long that video is going to be because it's already scripted out. You probably have a good idea of the shots you need to cover that voiceover. Now, if you're working with raw interviews, I usually do 4 passes on those interviews. First, I just listen to the entire interview and section out anything that catches my ear, and I set it aside. Then I go through those sound bites I made in the first cut and pare down from there. I also reorder them in a way that tells the story. Next, I ruthlessly eliminate even more sound bites until I'm at the desired length I know I need to be at. Next, I go through and clean up all of their ums and ahs to make them sound really eloquent and smarter. As an editor, that is your job. That really is. But what if you're working on a project that has no voiceover or sound bites and it's just like shots with, let's say, text overlays? I would start by finding a great cut of music. Cutting your clips along the beat adds a lot of excitement to your video, really helps it move it along. Now that we've got our audio laid in, before I tell you what you should be doing next, do you feel like you're learning something? Let me know by giving me a thumbs up, hitting that subscribe button, and ringing the bell. Okay, now that we've got our audio settled, you're gonna layer in your B-roll and graphics. If you're working with a voiceover or sound bites, your shots should match your audio. I have a pretty strict, if you say it, I wanna see it policy. So you shouldn't include any audio that you can't match with some sort of imagery. Hopefully you have access to B-roll that was shot just for the purposes of this project. If not, you can use a stock video library to supplement. I always try to avoid still images when possible because we are working in the video medium, aren't we? So I try to avoid still images unless it's like really necessary, like a historical topic for which there is no video. You want to make sure you lay in your B-roll shots in a way that makes sense. So let's say you're doing a tour video, you probably want to start with an exterior. If it's a tutorial about how to use a product, obviously those should be in sequence. Typically, I like to cluster similar B-roll scenes together so it feels like a little mini narrative within the context of my bigger video, instead of just throwing in random shots from random scenes throughout. That can feel very sporadic and disorganized. All right, now that you have all your shots laid out, this is the time to do any color grading or add any visual effects to your video clips. Next, you should add on any text overlays like name supers or punch words. Remember, you don't want too much text on your screen, and you need to give the viewer more time than you think to read those words. You already know what they say, but they're going to be watching it for the first time, so you definitely want to leave the text on a little bit longer than you think is necessary. All right, the last thing you should be doing is adding your transitions. I personally prefer straight cuts, but I do like to add a transition when we're changing from one scene to another, or introducing a new idea, or switching between music cuts. But remember, if you're trying to do a more like stately piece, something more serious, I would avoid any really crazy transitions. I would stick with straight cuts or longer dissolves. Here are a few stylistic tips to keep in mind. Shorter cuts generally feel more upbeat and fun and exciting, so maybe your video clips are only like 2 seconds long instead of 4. Most of my clients do prefer those shorter cuts. Longer shots convey grandeur, stateliness, and a more serious tone that can also be used to create sadness. So I hope I clarified for you how you should be approaching your editing projects and the proper order in which you should be doing things in your project. Do you guys agree or disagree with me? Do you use a different order of operations? I'm dying to hear. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you again.